discretion is advised.
You're listening to Odyssey, A Tale from the Road, an audiobook by Christopher Cologne. All rights reserved. Any resemblance to persons living or dead are purely coincidental.
Chapter 14. No sign of life, for miles and miles. Whenever I hear someone talk about overpopulation, I want to the about the vast expanses of land in upstate New York. I'm not talking about New York City. I could understand, after looking at how those people live like sardines stacked on top of each other, you might get the misconception that the world is running out of space for its people. They should come up here. There's plenty of elbow room with space to stretch your legs. People think that since you live in New York State, you must visit New York City every day. Nothing could be farther from the truth. From Ithaca is almost the same distance from New York City as it is to Toronto, Canada. There's a whole other world outside of Manhattan in our big state, and people need to learn that little fun fact. I heard the whining rumble of truck engine come behind us, heading in the same direction we were walking. I turned around. My bandmates were on the same page, they were walking behind me, and as I turned around all I saw was the back of their heads also looking to find the source of those sweet vibrations. People. Honest to goodness, live breathing people. The boys and I didn't talk while we walked, we were conserving our energy, because we had no idea when would be the next chance we got to rest. To see new, fresh faces was a blessing. It was an industrial catering truck. It was a long rectangle of a machine, where the driver's area of the truck blended right into the mini restaurant that was housed in the back. I've worked several odd jobs, lots of times on construction sites. On these sites, the construction workers used to lovingly refer to these trucks as roach coaches. Once again, like we did with Farmer Neil, I threw my arms in the air trying to get the driver to pull over and give us a lift. This time the guys joined in flailing their arms. We were desperate and it was showing. But we were all clean and dressed a little less threatening, thanks to Neil's son's generous clothing donations. We didn't look as scuzzy as we usually did, and this time I wasn't covered in blood. That's always a plus. Things were looking up for us. The truck mercifully pulled over. The driver had been the most average-looking guy I've ever seen. This guy could rob a bank and not get caught, because nobody would have been able to describe him to the cops. Average height, average build, no distinguishing characteristics, no scars, no tattoos, from what I saw, or even wrinkles on his face. In his favor, he didn't look young or too old. He had the face of a mannequin, a good-looking mannequin, but nothing that would pop out at you if you weren't really paying attention. His wife, we would learn soon enough, was very distinguishable. She was fat. How fat? The kind of fat that makes people in the street stare and uncouth children make rude comments. If this was 100 years ago, she could have easily made money in the sideshow as the fat lady. She would put Arnie Ellis to shame. I'll try not to mention the obvious connection between this woman's girth and the fact that her job is centered around food. The side of the truck said in large bright letters, "Tantalizing Family Foods and Catering." It was written on the panel that would swing upwards and act as a canopy for customers ordering food. It had been beautiful, diamond-plated, mirror-like chrome all up and down the sides of the truck. Bird, the driver, owner, and operator of this vehicle, took very good care of this machine, and it showed. Without a second guess, even with the usual negative reputation of roach coaches, I would eat at this one strictly based on just the outside appearance. That attention to detail was good for your reputation and sales. The truck pulled over to the side of the road. Bert had to crane his neck over his wife, Beatrice, because she was obstructing his view of us. Another thing about Bert's honest face. He looked like kind of guy I would have preferred to prepare my food. He seemed like the kind of guy that followed sanitation regulations out of personal pride, and not because of legal standards. You could eat off his floor and not have to worry about the 5-second rule, which claims that food that has been dropped on the floor was still edible if it has touched the floor for less than 5 seconds. Bert kept his floors immaculate, so it could be the 50-second rule or the 5-minute rule and you would be safe. Do you guys need a lift somewhere? Maybe we could help you, for at least part of the way. Bert asked, being ever so helpful. Being our representative, I spoke up, we're trying to get to Ithaca. We'll go as far as you can take us. We may have a few bucks on us, but nothing significant. We've been having a really rough couple of days. Sometimes you have rely on the kindness of strangers. That's a little out of the way that where we're headed, but I guess if we see a bus station or something we could drop you off. Bert was trying to be helpful, yet non-committal. Understandable, we didn't have any money and he wasn't going to overextend himself. It was accommodating enough that he stopped. We could have been highway thieves or escapees from a mental institution. We outnumbered him and his wife 4-2. Well, his wife looked like she could take on more than one guy, but it would still be 4-3, in our favor. That great. We really appreciate it. I sounded sincere, because I was. Bert got up from the driver's seat and walked over the door behind his wife's chair, unlocked it, slid it open and said it may be a bit of a tight squeeze back here. It wasn't made for people to ride in, but it should be enough for all four of you. Bert stood off to the side and motioned for us to enter his vehicle/business. Bert and his wife had been wearing pristine white double-breasted chef's jackets, with 2 rows of black buttons running down the front. I wanted to ask him where his poofy chef's hat was, but before I said anything I saw 2 of them meticulously clipped to a rack in the back. Him and his wife were the real deal, or at least they looked the part. The kitchen in the back of the truck had been gorgeous. I'm sure there were chefs out there that didn't have a setup this nice in their own homes, nevertheless on wheels. It was all stainless steel and I was hard-pressed to see a speck of dirt on any of his equipment. All my bandmates did fit, but it was like we were standing in a single file. I was the first on in, so I was in the back. I wanted to be able to speak to Bert. I had to squeeze past Jim, Dimitri, and Corey to get back to the front. Corey and I were still hostile to each other, but Corey didn't give me any unnecessary grief as brushed against him to get to the front. Even in Corey's mind, he knew he had to hold all his personal vendettas quiet because we needed this ride. He was responsible for ruining our last time, and if he ruined this one, Jim and Dima might join me in kicking his ass. One thought that kept going through my head was, how the hell did Beatrice fit back here? How did she even fit through the doors of the truck? We barely had enough room to move and we were all average size. And once they were serving customers, how did Bert work around her? Did she even work the kitchen? I wanted to know, but it wasn't my position to ask. But I was curious as hell to see this business in full swing. In my twisted imagination, I pictured Bert dressed up like a carnival barker with a cane and top hat. Bert was businessman and a showman. I could easily see him pulling his truck up to the local fair and announce to the crowds of people, come one, come all and see the amazing one-ton woman. Watch her prepare your food and serve it to you from her own personal kitchen prison. Gaze in wonderment as she takes a sample of every dish she prepares. You know the food is safe because she will act as your own personal professional food taster. Come see a show, for the low price of the food you're already ordering. For Beatrice's sake and her own self-esteem, I hope that wasn't the case. To satisfy my curiosity and make small talk, you have a really nice arrangement back here. What is it you guys do? Through the rear view mirror, I could see Bert's face light up. We're doing something that I've been dreaming about for years. We are bringing cuisine and fine dining to the masses. Beatrice added, it started when Bert and I met in a goddess club. I interjected, excuse me. Maybe, I didn't hear you correctly, a what club? I wasn't trying to be rude. I could have sworn she said goddess, and I wanted to make sure that's what she said. Because she certainly didn't look like what is usually associated with a goddess. Beatrice seemed very proud of herself. I'm a goddess, a BBW. She was trying to reach me, but I had no idea what she was talking about. Bert stepped in. BBW stands for Big Beautiful Women. A goddess is a woman that has embraced her big size and uses it to her advantage to attract guys like me. I'm a chubby chaser. I hate it when you use that term. Beatrice seemed annoyed. You appreciate a woman for her voluptuousness. I was so tired of people telling me, oh, you have such a pretty face, and yet nobody commented on my body. Women need that kind of validation, and Bert loves my size. This is what real women looks like, not those anorexic, cocaine addicted skeletons you see in fashion magazines. When Bert and I met and spoke, we discovered we both went to culinary school and wanted to be chefs. It was love at first sight, right honey? Bert was a man truly in love, yup, at first sight, and smiled in a way that reminded of how I felt about Penny. Pure love, raw and unadulterated. Well, we both had big dreams of being world-renowned chefs. Nobody goes into a business like the culinary arts to be mediocre. You want to be recognized and appreciated. We struggled for years in various restaurants. I was frustrated, because none of my bosses allowed me to advance. You can have all the training and experience in the world, but not a chef until somebody makes you a chef. It's not until you run your own kitchen and have staff of people working under you, that you are given chef status. It was all very elitist. You had to play by the restaurant owner's rules. If they didn't like you, you were remanded to crew for the rest of your life. In case you didn't recognize, I have a bit of a weight problem. Yeah, I can't wait to eat. She laughed tragically. All these restaurant owners weren't receptive to any of my ideas. All they saw was my size, so anything I had to say was ignored. Bird, the good man that he was, stood by my side, refusing to take any promotions until I was promoted along with him. Let me tell you, I work magic in the kitchen, and nobody could deny that. I had a friend who got a job as chef in the White House, and all I could say, without a shred of ego, was that I was definitely a better cook than she was. After years of trying to deal with the close-minded world, we saved up our money and bought this food truck. You should have seen this thing when we first bought it. I was shameful how the previous owner neglected it. We scrimped and saved, had friends help us, we gutted this thing, got parts from other discarded trucks and put together what you see here today. Our dream now a reality. Bert jumped in, and just to spite all those snobs that said we'd never make it in the business, I've made it my goal to teach your average Joe the art of fine dining. Those snobs, the restaurant owners, they strive on the idea that what they're doing is so special, and only the rich deserve that elite treatment. It's not what it's all cracked up to be. With the right cuts of meat and a little magic, I could make a steak that would sell in their restaurants for $80 to $100. I could do that for 1/10 of the price, and still turn a profit. I aim to show them for the frauds that they are. And in this truck, we have appointed each other as chefs. We are both the bosses and the staff. All the important decisions are split up and we share in the profits. Our old bosses couldn't fathom the idea of sharing that power with their staffs. Power to the bourgeois.
Please visit twostrangersonePodcast.net.